Hey Jake, how are you today? Welcome to Cowboys Not Eggheads. Appreciate you being on.
Thanks for having me today, Sam. I'm doing well. Appreciate it.
Good, good. So part of the intro that I read said that you're from New Orleans, and it was like the second word, and that's like the first thing that interested me. New Orleans is a great place for those who have not been there. It's a very unique fabric of Americana, in my opinion. So, what about New Orleans shaped your life or helped you become who you are? Is there how long did you live there? Or tell me about what does New Orleans mean to Jake?
Oof. There's a lot of darkness actually there for me. I was born
Hmm.
and raised there, grew up there, spent the first 17, 18 years of my life there. But so much of it, yeah, has got a lot of darkness to me because of how I grew up, what I was around, the environment, the people, and then just kind of how I handled myself dealing with all that. So I was just there a couple of days ago, funnily enough. But even still,
It's not very romantic as I may have portrayed.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love where I'm from. I love my people. I love my friends. I love my family. But there's just things that, remind me a lot more of the dark times than do of the good ones.
Right, right. Well, I had to ask a question.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's all good, man.
Um, the other part of your bio that I found interesting, obviously, the name of this podcast is Cowboys Not Eggheads, and the premise of this podcast is the world has both. World has both. We need both. But I'd rather have a few more cowboys than a few more eggheads. But your background has a little bit of both. So what are you, sir? Or what shaped you to be who you are today? More cowboy or more egghead or both? Or what do you think of my little dichotomy of life there?
I think you need both, just like you touched on. What would one be without the other? There's a great quote from one of my favorite movies, Hook, story of Peter Pan with Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman. And Dustin Hoffman portrays Captain Hook, and he says this famous line of "What would the world be like without Captain Hook?" Every protagonist needs its antagonist. Every rose its thorn. Every gun its dove of peace. Whatever, because otherwise you wouldn't have that satisfaction or appreciation of the good without it. So those eggheads, they're necessary. I think, and our egg-headedness of ourselves is necessary for our own growth to become better cowboys. Because if it was just a bunch of cowboys, cowboys wouldn't be that cool. So that scarcity
Right.
model of the eggheads kind of offsets the balance a little bit and helps, to use your word, the dichotomy, I think, a little bit.
Yeah. Great take. So one of the things that again in your bio that struck me was that you used the words radical candor and extreme accountability. Those are scary words because they're real. What can you expand more on radical candor and extreme accountability in just your life or how you want others to live their lives?
Yeah, so radical candor, just to be direct, absolutely unapologetically direct, open, and honest, right? Like how often we, as individuals, with our friends, with our families, with our peers, with anyone, don't necessarily tell them the truth, right? All radical candor is just, it just means the truth, hard truth. But too often, I believe we sugarcoat truths, not even so much for a lot of the recipient's preservation, but more for self-preservation. And why? It's not helping this person grow anymore. It's not helping whatever goal or objective we're working on together because you're giving a false sense of accomplishment, security, achievement, or otherwise. So radical candor, I think, is really how you're going to polish people better by giving them the honesty that they deserve and also need, as opposed to the warm-hearted fuzziness that sometimes they want, or sometimes we think they deserve. But doing that, I think, sets us back. And if more of us had radical candor, like if you go to the barber and you get a bad haircut, and you're like, it's okay, it's good enough, I guess. And you don't say anything, and he spins you around in the chair. And you're like, how's the cut look? And you're like, yeah, it's all right, it's not bad. But you're like, it's terrible. But you don't tell him why. You're not helping
Right.
this guy anymore, any way. Like be honest. It's okay. It's okay to be honest, especially with criticism. It's okay. And I think that we're just kind of inundated with this fear factor of like, I don't want to be mean, I don't want to be cruel, but It's just in how it's being received or perceived by the recipient. That's not your fault. And I'd give a great example of, you want some real radical candor that you can put into your life easily? Instead of telling people you can't, tell them you won't. Sam goes, hey, Jake, would you like to come on the show today? Sorry, Sam, I can't because ... I can. Can is an ability to do. I absolutely have the ability. Hey, Sam, I won't be there because, oh, okay. Like, he told me he's not coming, like, as opposed to I can't. Or like, hey, man, you want to come out tonight? Or, hey, man, you want to do this? I can't. You freaking can. You know you can. They know you can. Tell them you won't. Tell them why. Have the gumption, right? Have your own intestinal fortitude to kind of like stand in the fire and say, this is why. These are my principles. This is my, it's a character thing. It's a whatever. I have a commitment. I have a dedication to something else. So can't versus won't. And as far as extreme accountability or ownership for accountability, that's right there with that too. Like, whatever the decision is you're going to make, own it. Don't have remorse after the fact. Don't regret what you did in the past and then, after the fact, I wish I had, like, no. If you want to go eat these things, hang out with these people, do X, Y, Z, strip club, drugs, whatever it might be, good or bad, doesn't have to be bad. Just own it. Be there in the moment. Embrace it. Enjoy it. Like, after the fact, don't come to me and say, Jake, I'm sorry I messed up this weekend, da-da-da. And then I ask, well, was it fun? Well, yeah, it was fun. Did you enjoy it? Yeah,
was it worth?
yeah, then embrace that. Don't do it and then the whole
Yeah.
time be like, oh, you're smoldering of it. So extreme accountability.
Love it. I love that stuff. It leads me to the question is, today's, are you concerned about today's society in the sense that I think in the last, again, I'm 54 going on 55. And of course, I'm starting to sound like my parents or my grandparents. It's like, everything's changed. And I had a great uncle who once said, seen a lot of change in my life, been against most of it. But one of the changes that we've had, I believe, as society is that society is softened, and that kids from a young age are molded to be nice and so what you're saying is not saying to be mean, is to be straightforward. And to what that does, for in my opinion, is it sets a higher standard for expectations. You want to talk about that, or your feelings about that?
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's not about being mean, like you said. It's just about being honest. In school, for example, we're usually graded pretty honestly. You don't study for a test, you don't prepare well, like your marks are going to show, and you're going to get not the best grades, right? Those who do prepare, study, etc., they get good marks. Why would life or otherwise be any different? If anything, school should be like kind of like the learning place that it is, right? But then in life or in relationships or personally between one another in interaction, we're not that way. That's a setup for failure, I believe. And as far as in
It
things being
absolutely
different,
is.
throughout time and age, I was talking about this just the other day with my family in New Orleans and laughing. I've been listening to presidential addresses, like just past ones, just random ones from states of the union to infrequent addresses. You can take pretty much any presidential address from the last 100 years, within the last 100 years, and play it today, and it's basically going to apply for the most part. It's the same, for the most part, the same problems, the same struggles within the country, outside of the country, with our economy, with taxation, with spending, with racial injustices, with female oppression, with problems with education, problems with healthcare, geopolitical climates and changes and shifts. If you just change the dates and a couple of names, you could play it literally right now and be like, yeah, it sounds like status quo, right? So yes, I do agree that things change and there's a certain appeal about the current generation or younger than, like you said, you're 52, I'm about to be 40, younger than me, that I see like, man, this feels different than when it was my time. And whatnot, and I see them as a different curve on the ball and whatnot. And I think a big part of that, Sam, is because you and I had to grow up with the evolution of this lightning fast technology. We at least had to grow up with it. You know, like I can remember having a rotary phone at my grandfather's house. I can remember the steps
Yeah.
that we took to get to where we currently are now with having things, the means. So from a rotary phone to having our first Apple One or Apple Two, like at the house, and it was like the coolest thing ever, you know. And then going through the
Well,
steps.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's all good. Go ahead,
I
man.
told myself I'm not going to interrupt guests this season. I just did it
It's
to you. I
all
just
good. Go
apologize.
ahead.
But my first exposure to a computer, for instance, was not touch and go. It was how to program. In high school, we took a programming class on how to program BASIC, which is like that's not my thing. And so it wasn't easy. You know, it was absolutely. It's a different process for us. But I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. I took an HTML class in high school for program writing and coding.
Sure.
During the advent, you know, of the use of the internet. This was 1997, 1998, and I
Mm-hmm.
remember all those steps. Right, got the computer, then we had landline or dial-up internet, you know, with Netscape and all these other things, and like the progression of all that into the telecommunications with cell phones and everything else, and the tablets and smartphones. So we grew into that step by step, whereas now you're born into all of it, right? So when younger people, instant, right? Immediate results. You need any kind of information, satisfaction, delivery, or whatever.
You get that dopamine a lot quicker these days.
Instantly. So how can we, as elders, let's say, criticize younger people? They know nothing else. You know, for us to say, well,
Right.
these younger generation, they don't have any appreciation for hard work, or they don't want to work at these jobs that are available, so they'd rather do something else. They're lazy, this and that. How can we expect them to think any differently? Literally everything has been right there for them since birth. We were fortunate to grow into that, so we have a different kind of appreciation for that speed, right? But like, how can we think they are going to see that in the same light as we do? And I think that's one of the big disconnects between the generations right now.
Yeah, I agree. Leads nicely into my next question. Two of you have many. You have the principles of self belief in your program, and there are many of them. But the ones that I highlighted, one was have the curiosity of children, which I think great. Always do the right thing no matter what. So kind of segues when you say have the curiosity of children, are you saying we as participants need to, or are you saying that embrace what children are telling us, or both, or what? I just really love that. Have the curiosity of children.
I like how you put that about embrace what children are telling us, because I actually hadn't thought of that. To me, it was just having the curiosity of a child in the sense that children always want to know. You know, everything about being a child is looking at the world with wonder and awe of like, this is so cool. Oh my God, I want to know. Hey, Dad, why, right? Like trying to find questions. So to me, that having the curiosity of a child is maintaining your innocence, your childlike innocence as far as in your observance of the world, because it's going to make you criticize less and ask more, right? As adults, we more so are on the front foot to criticize, right? And I actually have that later on down in the values of like admire before criticizing, or ask why before telling why. Same thing. We love to tell. We love to scorn. We love to criticize, as opposed to tell me more about that. Why is that the case? As opposed to trying to find out for ourselves, having curiosity. We're quick to jump the gun and make a decision, like be judge and jury without having heard both sides of the argument. Whereas children, it's just, why? Cool. Oh my gosh, this is so neat. Blah, blah. That's what I mean by that.
Yeah, well, to me, it's going to make you less cynical and maybe more grateful.
For sure.
I'd like to kind of segue a little bit into the Marines. I've always described myself. I've never served in the military. I was in law enforcement for 13 years, but
Well, thank you
always
for the
describe
comments.
myself as well. You too, sir. I always describe myself as a wannabe Marine, and always been fascinated about the Marines. I consume anything I can on the Marine Corps. But I don't know, 15 or 18 years ago, well, it's been a while, but there was a series on HBO called Generation Kill, which is
Oh yeah,
fascinating to
oh
me.
yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. And it probably, you had been about the age that those guys
That was my time.
were
That was
in
my time
real
in the Marine Corps.
time. Okay. So everyone has told me that was understood that or was part of that, said it was pretty authentic. So it was, to me, it was a neat look, a different look at the Marines, and it made me want to run in that ride. I wanted to be in that Humvee. I really did. Um, what made you want to join the Marines?
I thought it'd be cool to play in the dirt and blow shit up.
Fair enough. Just like the guys at Generation Kill.
Yeah, man. Plain and simple. It looked cool. It looked fun. I appreciated the history, even then as a teenager. When I went, but yeah, it just looked fun and appealing. I was like, I could do that. I could have fun doing that. I could excel doing that. I also needed it. I wasn't doing anything well with my life. I didn't feel right at home. School was boring and unappealing, and that looked way more fun to me.
So this must have been New Orleans Marines. Is that was your path?
Correct.
Gotcha. And how long did you serve in the Marines?
4 years from 2003 to 2007. So the
It was
excerpt from
right during
Generation Kill was
Generation
that time.
Kill.
Yep. I have several of those guys I
Wow.
know personally, friends of mine that were either
Wow.
also along with them or otherwise right there at the same time too.
Gotcha. So that was a story about a recon unit. What was where were you within the Marine structure?
I was with the 1st Battalion, 5th Marine Regiment, so out of Camp Pendleton, California. That was the first recon battalion that you get to see in Generation Kill. There's some supportive scenes with the 5th Marines in the story of Generation Kill, and it's a good bit about it called One Bullet Away. It's a book by the platoon commander from Generation Kill, Nathaniel Fick. Give that a read.
Yeah,
It's a good one.
yeah, absolutely. Cool. So were you you've had a history of addiction? Did the Marines cause the addiction, or your time in the Marines? Was what happened in New Orleans? Was a systematic stem of your addiction? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Or tell me about that.
It came after the Marine Corps. Um, I didn't feel right when I got out. Life was weird. Society was weird. Trying to fit back in was hard. You go from being so structured and regimented and everything being life or death or a matter of life or death, right? And that's where that extreme accountability, adherence, discipline can't have any compromises regarding accuracy and whatnot. It makes having relationships very hard. Friendly, social, professional, romantic, very, very, very difficult because I couldn't see fallibility in anyone. I couldn't accept fallibility in anyone. And then I lost or felt like I had lost an identity, a big time identity, an identity that I did not have before the Marine Corps, that I found when I was there, and then that I lost again when I got out. And when I felt that I had lost that, it was, put me into turmoil.
Yeah, it's there's a YouTube video of Sergeant Brad Colbert, who from Generation Kill, who talks about how they spend millions and millions of dollars to be trained to be a killer, and then once you get out of the Marines, there's a 2 week phase out or whatever, and that's it. And it's like it's not a light switch, but it's like a light switch. Like, everything's back to society, and that's we've got to get that fixed, in my opinion. It's just an unrealistic expectation for people coming out of the service or out of a combat situation. And then all of a sudden they're back in society, and you're supposed to have normal relationships. You're supposed to look at everybody differently. You don't. I don't. It had to be incredibly difficult, and I guess that's some of the things that you were facing.
Yeah, it's interesting because the mission is the mission, and recovery, rehabilitation, whatever you want to call that, adjustment, back to society or civilian normalcy is something we all want to do and strive for, but the prioritization of time has got to be towards the other mission. Like they took so much time to kind of help us recover and rehabilitate. I don't know if that would take away from the effectiveness of the forward mission, right, and combat operations and whatnot, because there's only so much. The Marine Corps is the smallest branch of all the armed forces, right? That means we've got the smallest budget also. So we're used to doing more with less. It's kind of the
Making do.
pride element of being a Marine, but at the same time, I don't disagree with you. For what cost should that be? But the Marine Corps has been pretty effective for 200 plus years. So it's hard to say that
Sure have.
all of a sudden we're having these problems that didn't exist beforehand. I don't think they didn't. Was it a difference in the people? Was it a difference in what we saw there or what happened after the fact? Or is it the world that has changed so much and now our finding difficulty and readjusting to it? I don't know. I think there's more questions than just we need to have a better program in place, or we need to make 2 weeks, and instead of 2 weeks, have it be 3 weeks for our TAP classes or transition classes. But 3 weeks is not going to change 4 years, right? Or let's say you've been in for 20 years. 3 weeks isn't going to do that, and it's not like it's 20 years. It's every day, Sam. And if it's 4 years, it's every day. It's what you live and breathe every single day, right? So you can't just watch a couple of slideshows and go through some PowerPoints for 3 weeks. It's half of what you sleep through, and then think like, all right, I'm going to just turn it all off and get back on the sidewalk like everybody else. So it's tricky.
Yeah, doesn't work that way. One of the questions you used the word lost just a second ago, and one of the questions I had written down on is what is being lost?
Ooh, what is being lost?
You're not lost right now, correct? I assume you're not lost right now, but you were lost. So what's the difference?
That lack of identity, I think, was a big part of it, right? And that lost is not having a sense of wholesomeness, I would say, right? A sense of purpose, a sense of pride, something to hang your principles upon, something to have your conscience congruent to be able to motivate you for, or like keep you in line with, right? And when you're lost, you don't have that. Your compass is messed up. You're not walking in line with your conscience, so you're not maintaining conscience congruence, and you feel that. And that feeling of being off, it's not a good place to be. And that's how I felt for a long time, almost 20 years since I got out of the Marine Corps, and had it when I was there. And it's funny, back to the Peter Pan story, when you're trying to remember how to fly, all you have to do is you think your happy thought. But then you just got to hold on to that, because if you let it go, you fall down. Well, I didn't. I had a happy thought as a child. Somewhere along the way in life, it faded away, and that's what got me to the Marine Corps. Once I got there, I found a new happy thought, or I found a happy thought. I was flying again. And then when I got out, it went away. So those are my kind of dips of being lost. And now, I found a happy thought again, and it's like, God, hold on to it with everything you got, man, because that's where it's at.
Yeah. And I don't know, I guess you can share with us what you were addicted to. Was it alcohol or drugs or both? Or
both. Everything. I mean,
both.
Alcohol, drugs, women, food, places, events, anything to take me away from the present. Literally, that's what it was.
Right.
It was anything to take me outside of reality and away from the present moment.
The Great Escape. The Great Escape.
Indeed.
Why is it some people? I'm going to talk about alcohol because I've never done drugs. I've certainly drank alcohol, and the older I get, the more cautious I am, maybe, or more concerned, or more aware I am of when you're younger. It was you have a different lens, but now one of the questions I ask folks that have been addicted is, why is it some people can handle alcohol? Because some people can handle alcohol, but for others, alcohol handles them. Is it individual? Is it individual chemistry? Is it the environment? Or would you even agree that some people can handle alcohol? Is that a myth?
I'll say no human handles alcohol.
Thank you.
That's
for being
what I'd
honest.
say, because alcohol is poison, straight up. The human body, people can say whatever they want. Oh, a glass of wine, and this and that, and anti this, or it's bullshit, man. Alcohol is poison. Everything about it does not help the body. So consuming it is, and then back to that present moment thing, you are literally taking yourself out of the present. You are trying to induce a feeling of intoxication, inebriation, whatever you want to say, altered state of mind. Not to a benefit, but literally to escape, right? Like, what do you drink for? To take to cut off, right? Like, get home and like, oh, yeah, what a long day. Because you're trying not to feel.
It's a great escape. It's the escape.
So I don't think anyone handles alcohol. I think the illusion, the illusion is what they think means they handle it or not, but no one handles it.
I appreciate your candor. Let's talk about the big lie that alcohol isn't an escape. I mean, yesterday I had one of the top 10 experiences of my life. To be honest with you, I'm in Phoenix right now, and I climbed the old 54-year-old, went up Camelback Mountain. I don't know if you ever climbed Camelback, but I was walking trail up the mountain. No, it's not. I'm scared of heights. I'm scared of heights, and I was challenged quite a bit yesterday in that regard. And you're scaling, there are a couple places you're not, the whole places you're not on all fours scaling rocks, but there are a couple places you are. And the landing zone below you was a very narrow trail, and below that is about 600 feet of nothing drop off. And so my space, it was an incredible experience for me to kind of fight through some of those anxieties I have about heights. It was a great feeling. Obviously, anyone that's rock climbed understands that when you get to the top, there is a feeling of euphoria that's not unlike being intoxicated, in my opinion. It's a very natural, I don't know, it's a dopamine release or whatever, but it's a tremendous release that's natural. It doesn't have anything to do with drugs, and there's no time I've ever been intoxicated where I ever really felt that way. It's a different kind of escape. Where am I going with this question? How do you do you agree with me? I mean, do you agree? I mean, there are things that you do, obviously, from a fitness standpoint and from a spiritual standpoint. All these things that maybe have they replaced that escape from alcohol?
Well, the congratulations, first of all, to you for making the climb. That's awesome, man. Especially with your fear of heights and whatnot. That's great. That's awesome. Well done. And yeah, you earned that feeling. That's the first thing. You earned that feeling, and you earned it. So when you receive that feeling, it's not just because of the chemicals that are going on, the hormones that are pumping through you, and that epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline cocktail that's taking place, and a little bit of I can't think of the word right now, but it'll come back to me. But those are all real, and you made them happen. You earned the right to feel those feelings. So having that in the back of your mind, in your subconscious, means there's no guilt about it. Whereas with drugs and alcohol, like having those feelings, like it or not, whether you say it or not, whether you admit it or not, there's going to be some guilt in the subconscious because it's needed to be consumed in order to be enacted. But those are actual drugs, and other drugs that we take, whether it's alcohol or other types of substances, elicit the same types of responses, or they help induce the same releases of certain things. So like ecstasy, for example, you feel serotonin, the feel great feeling of love and happiness, everything, because your body and brain get flooded with it. Well, serotonin is a naturally occurring thing in the body, and it gives out in doses, sparingly. And that's why when you come off of days of taking ecstasy or MDMA and your serotonin levels are very low, so you kind of feel depressed and not really too happy. Well, that feeling that you got between the adrenaline, the epinephrine, the norepinephrine, the serotonin, and some other things, you were literally high on life, man. And so that is absolutely naturally occurring. And it's a beautiful thing. And yes, I certainly can say the same, that I get it all the time, whether it's from this activity, this meditation, this breath work, this ice bath, like that's the point of kind of doing all those things, is because you can literally elicit those responses naturally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff. So go climb a mountain, go jump in take a cold shower, do something.
Exactly.
It's a complete different intoxication is the wrong word, but it's a different chemical release. I guess it's more natural.
It's totally natural. It's totally natural.
Yep. I'd like to shift maybe a little bit into you're a carnivore, and I don't know really honestly what that means. What does that mean to Jake when you say you're a carnivore? What do you what is that?
That means for the last 3 years, or almost 3.5 years, I've eaten predominantly just animals and animal byproducts. So if it swims, walks, crawls, flies, or breathes, I consume it. Now, people would say,
Protein.
well, it's actually more fat. It's actually
Yeah.
there is protein
Yeah.
in it, yes, but the diet is predominantly based on fat. Why? Because protein is 4 calories per gram, fat is 9 calories per gram. So let's say you
9.
consume 100 grams of each of those, well, you would have 400 calories coming from protein and 900 calories from fat. So carnivore is just it's meat. It's meat, chicken, poultry, fish, seafood, dairy, anything that comes from an animal, sourced and is directly from an animal or an animal byproduct.
Do you eat raw meat?
Oh yeah, a lot. I love raw
What
meat.
kind of raw meat do you eat? I used to eat the raw hamburger as a kid.
Nice. Anything,
Uh, uh,
honestly, everything. I try all of my food raw, and oftentimes do it frequently. Like I love eating raw steak. I love raw liver for sure. Raw testicle,
oh,
I'm a big fan of. Raw seafood,
liver.
obviously, any kind. And raw bacon is really up there. Raw eggs too. Raw chicken,
So have you ever
anything.
been, if you, no, since you've begun this, have you gotten sick because
No,
you ate raw, the
no,
uncooked things?
no.
And what do you tell your doctor, who anybody else that says challenges you? You've got to cook that and cook out
I tell
the
them, look,
disease or
let me
the
see your lab work compared to my lab work. Let me see what you look like
yeah
compared to what I look like. Let me see how you feel compared to how I feel. Plain
yeah.
and simple.
But you've noticed that change by raw. I mean, we're going past the meat part. You've experienced that with the raw part of it.
As far as in,
The change of your blood work and your
oh, well, the blood
your
work between
feelings
the
and
blood work between raw versus cooked is probably not much different. But as far as in the
okay
experience of eating is very different. Meaning, if you think about
yeah
how many steaks you've had in your life, right? And I would assume you've had a few steaks. Let's say,
plenty. I grew up on a cattle ranch.
perfect. All right. So half of your eating experience, Sam, is actually premeditated, meaning it's familiar. It's very familiar. You know what the bite's going to feel like to cut it. You know what that first sensation of chewing and masticizing is going to be like. You have so much familiarity with the experience. Half of it honestly takes place before that first bite. Whereas when it's raw, every single bite you are so present for. You're so hyper aware because you're doubting, you're afraid, you're skeptic, you're curious, all these new feelings because you don't have the memory to tell you what it's like. So every single bite is like an experiment within your mind. So the experience is very intimate. I can get a steak right now and just plow through it because like, all right, let's go. It's hard to do that with a raw steak because again, it's every bite
Oh
is like
yeah.
I'm questioning it. Do I like this? Do I not like this? Am I going to get sick? What about what they say? Like all those things going through my mind. Whereas when it's a regular steak, I've had thousands of these. So I'm not thinking about any of that. I'm just, yep, If anything, it's harder to be present with the cooked version. It's damn near impossible to not be present with the raw one.
How is that? Not to get crass here, but your digestive output has that changed since you've ate raw
Tons, man.
meat?
So
Better, probably. I assume not
let's just say
worse.
carnivore. So the frequency of bowel movements drastically reduces when you go carnivore, as well as the volume. So far less and much smaller all the time. As far as in like gas, I don't ever have gas. I don't ever have indigestion. Again, the bowel movements frequency sometimes as little as once a week is the furthest I've stretched it. Like 7 days without having to use the toilet. It's amazing. So you save a lot of money on toilet paper.
Wow. Wow.
So people would say, well, why?
That's not the answer I was looking for, but
People
or
would
not
say,
that I was looking for an answer, but
why is that the case? It's because you're absorbing all of it. Everything you're consuming is absorbed.
every nutrient is being used. Yeah.
Everything. There's nothing to discard. There's nothing. There's no husk. There's no, cellulose. There's no structure, fiber, anything the body's like.
There's no food preservatives. There's none of the crap that they put in to make food. It's so sad because food preservatives and all that toxic stuff, it was made so that more people could afford food, basically. I mean, so it's cheap. I mean, you get what you pay for kind of stuff. But it's also, from a health standpoint, it's a disaster, an absolute disaster. What people are eating. You talk about alcohol being poison. Boy, there's a lot of foods out there that if you walk into a convenience store, it's all poison. I mean, if you're walking to a convenience store thinking, boy, there's something here I can eat.
You can pick out the healthiest grocery store in the world, and I'll show you how much poison there is in there, too. And at the same time, I can walk into a convenience store and show you how to eat carnivore, and it'll save you a lot of health and problems.
Well, if you can find me some sugar-free jerky, I'm all for it. But it's you got to look for it.
You got to look. It's
not always there.
And I agree with you. There's not the healthiest jerky per se, but like the unhealthiest jerky, the unhealthiest cheese, the unhealthiest boiled eggs you might find, the unhealthiest hot dogs that you're going to find at those gas stations are better than the things in bags, the things in wrappers, and the otherwise highly refined manufactured nonsense. Fact.
I'm excited. I'm going to tell my nutrition coach that I can eat hot dogs now. That's awesome.
It's all about moderation, brother. It's all about doing it right way. It is. The single most effective thing we can do as human beings to have the most profound impact on our health is controlling what we put into our mouths. Period.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What's your nutrition coach got you eating? What's the vibe on that?
Well, I was with her for 2 years, and she's been on 2 of my podcasts. Her story is incredible in and of itself. Her name is Bree Siegert, but the first podcast was where she came from, which was a situation of crisis and chaos, and probably not unlike yours. Drugs in the house and just a mess, and eating disorders and all this and that. So, and then the second podcast I had with her was about eat your protein. And so what we've established is what works for Sam is every day to have about 180 to 185 grams of protein a day. Seems to be what works for Sam. And so, at first we've done it all. I mean, the macros, all of it. Where I worried about carbs and fat and tracked it all. But what I worry about now is protein. And for whatever reason, again, I grew up on a ranch. I'm a cowboy. I shouldn't, eating meat shouldn't be a problem. But 185 grams of protein. Most people in America are not getting 185 grams of protein a day. Most of them are getting
not
80.
Even close. They're getting most Americans are getting less than 50 a day.
To me, that's scary. I mean, just based on my results and based on, so she's very protein driven coach, because for numerous reasons. One, I'm a CrossFitter, and so we want to build muscle, obviously. The second reason, the protein is, you're actually spending more. Apparently, your metabolism is kicked up by digesting protein, or you're burning more calories from protein, which I never knew. And so that's kind of our path, and it's worked out pretty well.
Nice.
No raw meat yet.
What are you eating with it?
Well, healthy carbs, veggies, when nobody ever eats enough veggies. Here I am. But
I haven't eaten a vegetable in 3 years, Sam.
Oh boy. Well, maybe we should have you two on together. But I'll eat starchy veggies too. I mean, I'll eat. I love like rice or a sweet potato or potato. It's just don't. It's what you put on that stuff that kills you. But that's kind of what I'm eating.
Serious debate right now. but I'll let it be.
Oh, you're all for loaded baked potatoes. See,
No,
maybe I'm gonna go on
I'm
your
saying
program.
like you think it's what's putting it on top of the potato that's the problem. No, it's the potato that's the problem, not the sour cream, not the butter that's putting it on top of it.
Oh, so you don't eat potatoes either, then?
I don't eat anything, any starches, any vegetables, nothing. Haven't in 3 years.
Nothing. All meat.
Yep.
Wow. See, I love different perspectives. It's great.
Occasionally fruit, when it calls to me, but nah, the rest of it, no. It's funny, man. Like
So you don't eat Doritos, you don't eat Ho-Hos,
no,
you don't eat.
no. I've been a vegan for over a year in the past. I've been a vegetarian for over a year. Every diet that I've subjected myself to, I did for a minimum of 1 year. So that way, when I was coaching people as a nutrition coach, also I had a place of empathy and experience to be able to talk to them about and come in from, as opposed to when someone's like, "Yeah, I tried that diet too. How long?" "Oh, like 3 weeks." Shut the fuck up. Like, no, that is not a sample size to be able to draw from. So I did minimum of 1 year for all the diets
Wow.
that I could find and figure out. Yeah.
And what were the things that you were grading? I mean, obviously, how you felt, your digestive output, your body composition, how you felt in a workout, or what were all the things you were measuring it against?
More so about what was the quality of the sustenance. So what was the makeup of it and what it took to get the sustenance that I needed. Meaning, as a vegan, unless you are a raw vegan, you are consuming a lot of processed food. If you are a vegan athlete, you're consuming processed food and lots of supplements because you cannot get the macronutrients naturally. They don't exist and certainly don't exist in the ratios you'd like them to. Same thing as a vegetarian. You cannot get the macronutrients in the ratios that you would need. Thus, you need supplements and also processed foods. So that was the first thing that I kind of found query with in those two, with veganism and vegetarianism, was I was like, you can't do it without naturally occurring food. So like, supplements and vitamins and all these pills. I was like, this is bullshit. So that was a big start for those two. Standard American diet, thinking about people telling me, yeah, consume all this bread and da-da-da-da. Gluten's trash. American gluten is trash, period. So anything that's coming from our domestic wheat germ is garbage. It's terrible for the body. The toxicity of what occurs in the body and the unfamiliarity that the body takes towards it, I could go off on that tangent for a while. And then the same thing when you start adding in sugar and dealing with what insulin responses or lacks thereof kind of do to the body and send it into just kind of crazy amounts of shock post is not good. So when I found carnivore and why this is the one, and it's not to me a debate, it's a fucking fact. If you had to have a single source of sustenance, one thing for the rest of your life to not just survive, not just make it through, but to thrive, one food, what would it be? Well, guess what? It is not coconuts. It is not avocado. It's not even shrimp. It's going to be meat. It's going to be preferably red meat. Why? Because it's got the protein, the fat, the amino acids, the vitamins, the minerals, the enzymes, the full profile, gamut, you could say, of nutrients. No other thing, gram for gram, pound for pound, in the world has that. So what does that mean? That means the body gets to rest in so many ways, just like an infant with breast milk. Why does breast milk exist? For this exact freaking reason. It gives that infant, that developing, fragile little baby, everything it needs, just like on a cattle farm with your cows, everything they need from a single source without stressing their bodies, because otherwise you could kill them if they put them under duress. All these other things that we're talking about putting into the diets, well, plants, for one, most plants have toxins. Most plants have poisons. Plants do not want to be eaten. They are grown and rooted into the ground. Fruit kind of wants to be eaten. It falls. People literally die from falling fucking coconuts every year. Fruit falls and drops, and it's literally there for you to pick and grab. Vegetables, we have to uproot, literally pull them out, and even still, there's many vegetables that we consume now that after their processing are healthy and safe to eat, but beforehand, they will literally kill you if you ate them. A la certain types of beans and legumes, for example, would kill you. Nuts even would kill you if you do not clean and process them correctly. So between the chemicals inside the plants, sometimes on the outside of the plants, there's so much that right off the cuff they don't agree with. But this thing, the tongue, and this thing, this pleasure center, and then all of societal's perceptions and assumed goods that we have now makes it very conflicting for us to understand.
Well, I have to play devil's advocate, right? Because I'm a good host.
Go for it.
What about but your meat? But what is your meat eating? Your meat is eating plants.
They're supposed to. That's what they're
Okay,
supposed
so you're
to
saying
do.
you're saying humans are not meant to eat
A
plants.
cow has 3 stomachs. Why does the cow have 3 stomachs? Well, because it is.
It takes that much to digest.
It is equipped to digest all of that and break it down the way it's supposed to. Whereas when we consume a lot of these other things, first of all, you have the signals your body's telling you, whether it's gas from above, gas from below, the scent passing through urine, a la broccoli or asparagus. Inflammation that can occur, like you can see this in C-reactive protein numbers for lab results or lipid panels when you can see inflammation occurring throughout the body. Whereas with carnivore, nothing is discarded. Again, remember the breast milk thing. Are there vegetables in breast milk? No. It's completely animal-based. It's 100% has 100% bioavailability. It is predominantly fat also, right? Fat is the optimal fuel source for the body and for the brain. The brain is made up of a lot of cholesterol, and the best fuel source for the body is not carbohydrates. It is fat, because fat is an actual energy-burning molecule or energy-burning element, a la blubber, a la wax, a la oil. That's why we used oils to burn candles with, to create flames. You burn a carbohydrate, it burns really quickly, like a 151 or like a bar trick where you pour it in your mouth and you blow fire with it, because it burns quickly because it's a simple sugar.
But isn't that why athletes take carbs? I mean, because they need something to burn quickly.
Well, I ran a 326.
Like athletes in competition.
Okay, well, I ran a 326 marathon with 0 carbs, fasted, and dry, meaning no water on the course, no intra-race gels, nothing, and no food that day. So,
wow.
No, you don't. No athletes.
That's amazing, man.
Exactly. Like, you don't need them. We think we do, and the world tells us we do, and the shopping carts and the supplement stores and da-da-da. We don't, brother. We don't.
Yeah. You remind me of the Who Moved My Cheese kind of guy. I don't know if you read that book.
It's a good book.
It's a great book.
I got it on the shelf.
Wow, great segment.
Basically, Sam, there is so much more about nutritional science and dietetics than what is supposed to be considered absolute and dogmatic. I'm not saying all these other ways are wrong. Your nutritionist, I'm sure she's great and very knowledgeable, and obviously you've been taking care of yourself. You look awesome. You're feeling great. You guys are killing it. You're doing something right. What I am saying is there are many of the assumed rules or absolutes out there I am saying are not absolute. I am saying that many of them can be bent and some of them broken. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a cowboy attitude, buddy. But you're measuring it by egghead type analysis. So, I mean, we need both, right?
You got to get anecdotal.
Switching into how Jake is wired, I love talking about how people are wired. Are you wired the way you are from birth and didn't know it, or did you grow and develop into who you are today?
I think I've always been this way. I mean, anybody that'll tell you who I was as a kid, I was curious, talkative, outgoing, fun, energetic, talkative. So how I am now is just really embracing who I've always been and not being afraid to be that.
Interesting. One of the things you talk about is obey our conscience. We believe in spontaneous right action, consciously choosing the correct moral decision. I'm sorry, this thing is blocked. I'm going to repeat that, folks. We believe in spontaneous right action, consciously choosing the correct moral decision in every situation that brings happiness to ourselves and those around us. We obey our conscience. We don't betray ourselves. to disobey your own conscience is to split yourself, and that's one of your beliefs or part of your systems that you're teaching and so forth.
Yep.
And I was captured by that because I've always said let your conscience be your guide, which could be good or bad, but that's kind of what you're saying. Tell me about tell me about that.
I think let your conscience be a guide is a much more efficient way of saying what I had written there. So right on. And I don't think though that it can be bad. Not letting your conscience be your guide, that I'd say can be bad, because when you walk in line with your conscience, when you really are living with it, you freaking know it, man. When you're not, you know that too. Walking in line with your conscience or letting your conscience be your guide doesn't mean the same thing as trusting your gut. It doesn't mean the same thing as going with your instinct. Your conscience is the light of your soul. That's how I define it. The light of your soul. That is not me going on a hunch. That is not me, okay, I'm pretty sure. Like, no. We're talking about morals. We're talking about ethics. We're talking about character, principle, purpose, inherent goodness of humanity, the inherent goodness of humanity, the intrinsic value of quality and of character, right? You know what that feels like. This is real right or wrong. So there is no bad, in my opinion, of walking with your conscience as your guide, because it can only be good. There's no corrupted conscience.
Yeah.
Now, there are bad feelings, and there's ill will, but that's outside of that. And then you're definitely not walking in line with your conscience, and you know it for sure.
Yeah. That's great stuff. One of the things that you help people get to is this thing called happiness. So what is happiness?
Yeah, that's for us all to interpret differently, right? My three words are
Yeah.
health, happiness, and wealth. Getting people happy, healthy, and wealthy. Well, people immediately go, well, I want to be wealthy. I want to make money. Wealth has nothing to do with money. If you define it
Zero
that
to
way,
do with
it
money.
can. Yeah, if you define it that way, it can. But to be wealthy within, that is the best happiness. To be happy within, that is the best happiness. To be healthy from the inside out, that is the best happiness. So like those three words of being happy, healthy, and wealthy, they are all similar, yet they're all very different, and each of us defines them differently.
Yeah. Yeah. What you described to me as being rich and doesn't have a damn thing to do with money.
Exactly.
Yep. If you could change one thing about the state of the world, what would it be?
For everyone to be happy, healthy, and wealthy, right? So that everyone would understand the magic that they have inside of them, and for it never to be denied in anyone. And I say that because I remember when my brother was in law school, I went to a hearing of his where I watched 3 teenagers get sentenced to basically life in prison. They were kids, 2 were 17, one was 19. Or they were 2 were 19, one was 21, but at the time of the crimes, they were 17 and 19. And I watched these 3 children get sent away for life because of some crime they committed. It was terrible, unfortunately. But like when I saw them, they were clean, they were together, and it like broke my heart to see that. And I just was like, wow, these are 3 lives that will never be known. They will never be developed. They will never have the chance to dream or become something. Maybe one of those or all of them were 3 of the greatest thought leaders that could have ever come into the world, but we'll never know. Right? So I think there's just so many opportunities for people out there that are never allowed to come to fruition, and especially children. So for me, I would love, one thing if I could change the world, like for everybody to have the opportunity to be happy, healthy, and wealthy.
Yep. Get rid of prisons. I would need them. If you were invisible, if you had the superpower of being invisible, how would you use that?
Oh, God, that's not fair.
It's not. It's not. It's a deep question.
Yeah. Oh, man. How would you, Sam? I'm gonna flip it on you.
A lot of I've asked this a couple times this year because I actually got this interview question from a 15-year-old podcaster. I just thought it was fantastic. And you start thinking about it. And some of my guests have said, well, I wouldn't touch that because I would only do bad. Because you think, theoretically, you think sixth grade looking in the girls' locker room, walking in how I would use it would be, someone I admire, I'd follow them around for a day or a month and see how that,
Nice.
see what's up behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't, that's how I do it.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, I would probably stay away from it, like some of the others said, because inevitably, I think
It only leads to bad, huh? Can't handle the truth.
Curiosity is going to get you so far, and then you're going to get maybe in trouble. So I don't know. I think I would pass. Is people be like, would you really pass on that? Well, I'm saying right now, I think I would pass on it. Yeah.
Well, that's your conscience.
Yeah.
That's your conscience. Jake, I really appreciate. How can folks get more information on you?
Lifelikejake.com. So you can find me online on the website. You can apply to the programs also through there. And then on Instagram is where I'm most active, most personal. Same thing, at lifelikejake.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate our time. You have anything for me?
No, it's been great sitting here with you, Sam. I appreciate your answering my questions too. I know it's a lot of times it's a one-way street, but I appreciate.
Well, I think you and I think a lot alike, and we use a service called Podmatch, which I don't use very often. And actually, of my 50-some podcasts, you are the second person that I've interviewed, or I didn't know them beforehand. And
oh, cool. Well, thanks, man.
This is a good Podmatch in my opinion. So,
thanks.
Shout out to Podmatch.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Stop this. Okay, that's stopped, and sorry, usually my producer's usually on to do this part of it, so I've got to just make sure I'm doing this right. That's stopped. While we're waiting for that, Jake, I like to, I've got a Cowboys Not Eggheads, but I call my wife makes fun of me, but I call it swag. I've got Cowboy Not Eggheads. I got a hat here, or I've got a T-shirt, or I've got coffee mugs. What can I send you as my token of appreciation?
A mug would be great, man. A mug?
Mug?
Would be cool. Yeah,
okay. Please. Give me your. We're 99% up, so the 1% that we have, you have to upload. Tell me your address.
Yeah, 1065.
65.
Southwest 8th Street.
Okay. Miami?
Yep, that's PMB, like post mailbox. 510.
Oh, yeah. 5103. Okay.
Miami 33130.
Cool. I'm going to be in Miami in May with my niece. We take our nieces and nephews to, after they graduate from college, wherever they want to go, and she
cool.
chose Miami Beach. Smart gal,
That's
huh?
awesome. Yeah. In May, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, after they graduate.
Yeah. First week of May.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, right on.
Yeah.
Well, hit me up. I'll be here.
Yep.
I should be here.
I will. You know what? I might do that. It's still saying 99% uploaded. We got my producer's like, you wait till it's 100% uploaded before you cut the people. I appreciate your time, man. An hour of someone's time is that's a lot. It's a lot. Now, you're in real estate too? Is that right?
I'm licensed here in Florida and work out of the Miami Coconut Grove office with Compass, or I should say, I refer people out of there. And I'm still licensed in New York, so I don't work actively. I just refer business now.
Gotcha. So you're most of your thrust of what you do during the day is helping people healthy, wealthy, and
all of it, man. Yeah, all of it. I love it.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, man. Still 99% uploaded. I sure as heck wouldn't want to screw this up.
That's all good, brother.
I wouldn't want to duplicate what we just did because it's too good to duplicate.
I do need to get going. So, like, if it's going to be,
yeah, I mean, if you've got to cut, you've got to cut. I get it.
I got a few minutes, but I can't stay all day. You know?
Yeah. No. I should be just. It's usually a couple. It's usually just a minute or two. It may be because I'm My buddy's condo that I'm staying at, his Wi-Fi might be a little slower than what I'm used to.
How's the weather in Tempe?
It is. It's been good. We've been here about 3 weeks, and 66, 67 has been about the best it's been. It was supposed to rain today, but it's I can see the sun. It's gonna be probably 55 or something. It's great.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
It's
I thought
great.
it was gonna be like I thought it'd be like a lot more warmer.
No, no. This time of the year is just real nice. I mean, just real, just
Cool.
light. It's funny because I'm in Nebraska. It's 5 degrees there, and like in Nebraska, I'll go to the gym without a jacket when it's 42 degrees. But here, it's like you hit 54. It's like, oh, I need a jacket now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's all relative. It's all
That's
relative.
amazing.
Come on, dude. Let's upload this thing. Come on. 99%.
Does it download for you somewhere on your end, Sam?
It
Or is it
does.
it's
It
like a
does.
cloud download?
Yeah, it does. And I actually, I've got that too. Usually, I've got really good quality, and you've got a good mic there, so it's going to be good. You have a very
Yeah, good.
uh, come on thing upload. This is